It should have been simple, a quiet anniversary dinner in our Seattle condo. Candles, a ribeye with peppercorn sauce, a playlist low enough that I could hear the rain on the window. Instead, Ryan Hart, my husband of 5 years, texted at 9:03 p.m. Project's on fire. Don't wait up. I stared at the table set for two, then typed one word back. Sure. No fight, no scene. Just the familiar hollow. He came in after 1 a.m., smelling faintly of bourbon and a perfume I didn't own. Did I wake you? He asked, already sliding his carry-on toward the bedroom, like he could outrun the question. I smiled, like always, the cool wife who never snoops, and hung up his jacket. While he showered, I did what I always do, unpacked. Suits on the rack, chargers on the nightstand, socks in the top drawer. I had the roll down to muscle memory until the zipper on the carry-on's side pocket snagged on a folded slip of paper. A receipt. Calistoga Hot Springs Resort, Napa Valley, 2 nights, 2 days ago. He'd told me he was in Dallas. My hands shook hard enough to rattle the hanger. I kept going because stopping meant falling apart. Inside his suit jacket, against the inner lining, I felt a small velvet box. I opened it. Pearl earrings, exquisite and expensive. I don't have pierced ears. The shower shut off. I slid the receipt and the box back exactly the way I found them and finished hanging shirts I couldn't see anymore. In the morning, I made his favorite scallion oil noodles with over-easy eggs, my olive oil American kitchen version. He shuffled in, half asleep. Sunrise in the west today, he joked, dropping a kiss on my hair. I plated his eggs, smiled, and asked lightly, how was Dallas funny? I found a Hot Springs receipt in your bag. Napa looked romantic. His chopsticks froze midair, half a second barely there. Oh, right! For fill-in accounts, he said too quickly, grabbing at the lifeline. He and his wife. I booked it for them. Must have stuffed the receipt by mistake. Got it. I sipped my coffee. And the pearl earrings in your inner pocket. Beautiful. Shame I can't wear them. His smile died. He came around behind me, wrapped his arms around my shoulders. Surprise gone wrong. They're for your cousin's wedding, he said, voice dropping to that contrite practiced register. Didn't want to ruin it. I hadn't told him my cousin was engaged. I set my mug down so I wouldn't throw it. You should eat. You'll be late. I worked in finance. Numbers usually calm me. That day, the spreadsheet swam. By 6 p.m., I was the last one in the office staring at our shared cloud drive, like it might blink first. Years ago, Ryan and I had promised no secrets one family folder for everything. It was neat, organized, innocent. The storage bar said otherwise, almost full, but the visible files weren't big enough to explain it. I searched, poked, and found a hidden folder with the world's blandest name and a password. I tried birthdays, our anniversary, the Seahawks Super Bowl year. No. Then I typed the license plate from his first car, something only he and I knew, and the folder opened like a mouth. Dozens of subfolders, each labeled by date. Inside photos, Ryan in Napa, with a woman about 10 years younger. A glossy, pretty pick-me type who posed like the world owed her good lighting. Ryan in Vail, hugging her at the lift line matching beanies. Ryan at Disneyland fireworks in the background, his chin hooked over her shoulder. A close-up of her hand, a diamond nearly twice the size of my ring in the same setting. This wasn't a fling, it was replacement. I let myself cry exactly once. Forehead on the desk, the ugly kind with no sound. And then I called the one person who wouldn't let me drown in it. Maya Torres, my best friend since college, and a divorce attorney who kept a spare blazer behind her chair and a boxing bag behind her door. Come by, she said. Now. Maya didn't gasp at the photos. She got cold professional. These prove the affair. They don't win the estate, she said, sliding me tissues and a legal pad. We need evidence he's moving marital assets, and we need it fast. Back home, while Ryan snored on the sofa, I opened the joint online banking. For months, there'd been investments out of our checking, $8,500 here, $19,200 there, into a shell I'd never heard of, Westfield Trading LLC. I ran a quick search. Registered agent Mason Hart, Ryan's younger brother. My stomach iced over. They weren't just cheating, they were draining us. I didn't slam a single cabinet. I didn't wake him. I opened a new account in my name alone. and transferred out the legal portion, I could safely justify small increments, sub $5,000, spaced on different days and accounts so no automatic flags tripped. Then I exported a year of statements, highlighted every investment, and drafted a timeline. Maya took one look the next morning and started a war room. We spent the weekend under fluorescent lights at her firm, assembling an emergency package, a petition for dissolution, a motion for an ex parte temporary restraining order to freeze marital assets, an affidavit with the timeline and screenshots, and a proposed order for the judge to sign. She pulled 2 associates. I brewed coffee. We redlined every page until there was no air left in the margins. By Sunday night, my phone buzzed a number I didn't recognize, texting flight details. Maya had referred me to a licensed PI, middle-aged, quiet eyes, the kind of manage people forget is in the room. I'd given him one instruction: don't get me PDA, get me logistics. He delivered Tuesday 11:20 a.m. Flight HA-21, Seattle to Honolulu. 6 tickets. Names Ryan. His parents Richard and Helen Hart. His brother Mason, and Mason's wife Kara, and a 6th Vera Voss. They weren't even hiding her. It was a family trip, a fake business conference turned honeymoon rehearsal. A test drive of my replacement. On Monday morning at 8 Huzho sharp, Maya and I filed everything at King County Superior Court. The clerk stamped, the runner disappeared down the corridor, and we sat in that strange courthouse silence, a hum like the building itself was holding its breath. Maya squeezed my hand once. "Judges are human," she said. We gave them no wiggle room. Back home that night, Ryan showboated as if on cue. He lined up suits on the bed and told me he'd be in Dallas then LA all week. He set a pastry box, my favorite bakery, on the counter and rehearsed his caring husband lines. I ironed his shirts. I packed his meds. I tucked a travel-size bottle of antacids into a side pocket he never checked. I played my part so well, even I almost believed it. He hugged me at the door, Tuesday morning breath warm against my ear. "Be good. I'll be home before you miss me." I kissed his cheek and smiled. "Text me when you land." At 11:26 a.m., the PI's text came through, boarded. "Wheels up." Maya and I were already in the courthouse lobby when her phone buzzed back from Chambers. She read, exhaled, and looked up at me. "Granted," she said. "Full temporary freeze on marital accounts and credit lines. Effective immediately." I nodded once, because if I let Joy out, it might turn into something worse. Maya handed copies to her runner and called the banks for service. Within minutes, our joint credit cards were dead plastic. The transfers into Westfield were frozen. Automatic payments were paused. The judge's order didn't care about beaches or hotel upgrades or who thought they deserved my life. I went home to a quiet apartment and made a sandwich I couldn't taste. Somewhere over the Pacific, 6 people were planning Mai Tais and designer shopping on my dime. Somewhere between the jet bridge and baggage claim, they'd learn what I learned this weekend. When you mistake silence for weakness, you never see the hand on the switch. Honolulu greeted them like a postcard, warm trade winds, plumeria sweet in the air, blue stacked on blue. Ryan played tour guide on Kalakaua Avenue, one hand on Vera Voss's waist, the other towing Richard and Helen Hart, Mason, and Kara through Luxury Row like he owned the block. The hotel oceanfront in Waikiki, adjoining suites with a lanai the size of a studio, had already pre-authorized his card. He was relaxed, loud, triumphant. They made it 2 doors down from the lobby before Vera found the bag, an alabaster crocodile mini with a white gold clasp under glass. The sales manager did the glove routine, the velvet pad, the practiced whisper, limited allocation. Vera glowed, Helen gushed. Ryan pulled out his black card like a curtain call. The POS terminal chirped, thought about its life choices, then spat back, declined. Ryan laughed. "Run it again." Declined. "Try this one. Gold card. Then the platinum. Then the business visa." Declined, declined, declined. The room temperature shifted. The manager stayed professional. Everyone else didn't. Vera's smile snapped in half. Helen's voice sharpened to a hiss. The store suddenly had mirrors everywhere, and all of them were watching. Ryan stepped away and dialed the concierge number on the back of his card. He gave the code words, "Wealthy men learn, priority line executive desk." A measured, almost apologetic voice came on. Mr. Hart, your accounts linked to the joint profile are under a temporary restraining order from King County Superior Court. We're obligated to comply. For details, you'll need to contact your attorney. For a second, he truly didn't understand the English. Then he did. Color drained out of his face like the tide. He called me. I let it ring once. "What did you do?" he snarled, skipping hello. In the background, Vera high and tight. "Helen, fix this Ryan." Mason whispering numbers that wouldn't help. Protected marital assets. I said calm enough to scare even myself. "How's Waikiki?" Silence. Then a graceless pivot. "I'm in Dallas." "Sure. Wave to Vera for me." "Oh, when you get back, tell your brother I appreciated the creativity of Westfield Trading LLC. The judge didn't. He tried bluster. He tried insult. He tried, 'You'll be sorry.' I let him wear himself out, then gave him the one thing he actually needed. There's a stamped order on file. Every shared account is frozen. Every shared card is off. I filed for dissolution this morning. Enjoy the beach." I hung up. Back at the boutique, he said words that don't fix anything. The manager to her credit boxed nothing and offered water. Helen turned on Vera. If you hadn't, Vera turned on Helen. If your deadbeat Mason tried to herd cats, they retreated heat-burned and humiliated past the glass and the pity. At the hotel front desk, the manager wore the same careful smile as the boutiques. "Mr. Hart, as a courtesy, your deposit covers tonight through noon tomorrow. To extend, we'll need a valid card." Ryan nodded like a man who could conjure plastic out of air. He couldn't. Their cash between 6 adults wouldn't float the rate, let alone dinner. That night, 6 Hearts ate kettle chips from the ABC store and pretended it was fine. By morning, it wasn't. Noon checkout came with security, and that tone hospitality uses when it needs you gone. They rolled monogrammed luggage past a lobby they'd Instagrammed 12 hours earlier and out into sun that suddenly felt hostile. The downgrade was violent. From oceanfront Lanai to a Kuhio Avenue budget motel, where the AC rattled the sheets, were cleanish, and the front desk wanted cash up front. 2 rooms, 6 people, 1 bathroom, a cockroach that refused to negotiate. Vera took one look at the bedspread and detonated. "You promised me a life, Ryan. Not this." She stripped off the diamond pendant he'd bought in Napa, let it clatter on the particle board dresser, and slapped him hard enough that his eyes watered. Then she called her father and switched to a voice made of sugar and knives. "Daddy, I need a flight, now." She dragged her Rimowa out into the blinding afternoon and didn't look back. Inside, Helen found a target. "This is her fault," she spat, meaning me without saying my name. 5 years, she gave you nothing. No child, no support, and now, enough! It was the first time Ryan had ever raised his voice to his mother. It startled even him. "This is on me!" He tried calling friends, partners, golf buddies. It turns out loans evaporate when you can't explain why you need them. After 30 minutes of can't swing at bad timing and voicemail, he put his phone face down and stared at the stippled ceiling until his jaw ached. On the sidewalk that evening, the trade winds had shifted. Tourists moved in cheerful eddies around the little family storm, Richard quiet and gray, Kara calculating exit strategies, Mason kicking a crack in the curb like it could answer for anything. Ryan called again. I let it ring twice. "Lena, please." He'd never used my name like that bruised horse the swagger vacuumed out. "Just get us home. We're stuck." "I didn't say I warned you." "I didn't say Vera looked good in that diamond." I opened my laptop, pulled up a template Maya had drafted for exactly this moment, and emailed it while we were still on the phone a proposed settlement. Clean, comprehensive, not generous. Primary residence to me. Liquid accounts to me. 60% of the company shares to me via quitclaim. He'd keep his personal effects and the remainder of his separate property, plus a fixed one-time transfer for coach tickets home upon signature. On the other end, paper shuffled in a room that smelled like mildew and lost chances. He read it. He didn't bargain. He didn't have the chips. At 10:12 p.m., a PDF hit my inbox, signed clumsy, angry, but legible. I forwarded it to Maya. 10 minutes later, a wire for the exact cost of 6 economy seats C-bound left my account and entered his. No more, no less. They flew home the next day without Vera, without luggage weight to check, without the performance. No upgrades, no cocktails, no jokes. When the taxi rolled up to the Hart's lakefront house, Ryan did the same thing he always did, reached for the key. The lock blinked red. New keypad, new code. On the porch, a neat pyramid of banker's boxes waited in the sunsuits, pressed by hands that no longer shook toiletries. In Ziplock's photos, he'd never asked me to frame. On top, a single envelope in my handwriting. Your things. Your attorney has the key. Inside my apartment, I set my own key on my own counter and exhaled into a room that didn't echo anymore. The freeze had done its job. The fall had only just begun. By Wednesday, I'd done the unglamorous cleanup mail, forwarding filed utilities, split passwords, changed two-factor everywhere. Maya served Ryan through his counsel, and by email, proof of receipt logged to the minute. The house was off my plate. The money was caged. What remained was the part you can't spreadsheet fallout. Work weirdly helped. I buried myself in our pitch for Northlake Partners, a logistics client we'd chased for months. At 9 a.m., Evan Price, our newly appointed GM, asked me into his office. He was what people call surgical no gossip, no fishing, just a quick audit of my deck. This section is strong, he said, tapping the margin. Benchmark your SEAC to industry median and add a risk band. You good to present Friday? Yeah. My voice didn't shake. Small win. Evan closed the folder, studied me a beat, and kept it professional. You're carrying 3 people's load, and it shows in a good way. Also drink water. You look like you solved 6 problems before 7 a.m. It was dry humor, not intrusion. I left with edits and a steadier spine. The internet broke at 10:41. A burner account on a local forum posted a wall of bile with a tabloid headline. Marketing Director. Bed's boss bleeds husband dry. It stapled unrelated photos, me and Evan at a ramen place near the office. Evan opening a car door after our last client dinner. A blurry lobby shot with enough grain to invent sin. The copy hit every ugly note homewrecker gold digger femme fatale who froze her man's accounts to fund a fling. Within an hour, it spread to Twitter, Facebook groups, even a couple of wannabe tea pages that love a pile-on. The comments were feral. HR pinged me for a quick chat. My Slack DMs went from, "You okay?" to, "Is it true?" faster than I could mute them. I stared at my screen until the words unhooked from meaning. Then someone knocked once, and Evan walked in, closed my door, and pulled the blinds like he'd rehearsed it. He didn't ask what happened. He said, "We're going to fix it." He took my phone, powered it down, and spoke into his. Lydia Evan. Pull legal and comms into my office now. Scope defamation involving an employee and me. I want takedowns, preservation notices to the platforms, and a complaint drafted. I trace the origin and early amplifiers. Assume coordinated. He ended the call and looked at me, the edge dropping from his voice. You don't have to prove anything to me. Breathe. Comms drafted a statement, no relationship, zero tolerance for harassment, support for the employee. Legal prepped a defamation packet with exhibits and a demand for retractions. IA found what we expected. The first post originated from a prepaid phone on a coffee shop Wi-Fi near Helen Hart's building and was immediately boosted by 3 throwaway accounts created that morning. The urge to cry hit like a wave and passed. She dragged you into this, I said, voice flat. She picked the wrong hill, Evan said. Also, my mother will now forever ask why my name was trending at 11 a.m. You owe me a casserole. I snorted despite myself. By noon, HR had my back, and comms had the platforms freezing the thread. By 1, I had screenshots, timestamps, and a document name from legal that read like a verdict. Price v. Doe Hart et al. Maya texted, saw it. Breathe. Also nice counsel, tell Evan I approve. I almost smiled. On the other side of the city, the rumor reached Ryan through the same sewer pipe. He'd been orbiting rock bottom since Waikiki, sleeping odd hours in his parents' spare room. Not enough food, too much whiskey. Mason shoved the phone in his face, scrolling rage. Look what Mom did! For once, the shame cut through the hangover. He went straight to Helen's den. You posted this. Helen had that brittle, righteous look of someone certain that ends justify means. People should know what she is, she said. Maybe that boss stopped sniffing around when... Stop! His voice cracked. It's a lie. All of it. And you just made it worse for everyone. She rolled her eyes. I did it for you. No, Mom, he said, and something in him finally cratered. You did it because you can't stand losing. Ryan left her mid-sputter, dug in the hall closet for a black leather notebook. The one with his immaculate bullet points and checkboxes that I'd photographed weeks ago, and sat at the dining table with Mason's phone propped against a candle. He looked terrible gray stubble a-swelling where Vera's slap had bloomed yellow eyes that hadn't landed on sleep in days. He hit record. "My name is Ryan Hart." He started, voice raw and steadying as he went. "This is for anyone who saw the garbage online today. The affair happened. I had it. I pursued Vera Voss. I lied to my wife. I moved money into Westfield Trading LLC, run by my brother, to keep it out of our household accounts. I planned to leave my wife with nothing. She froze the accounts through the court. She did the only smart legal thing left. She never cheated, not with her boss, not with anyone." He held up the notebook, flipping to pages labeled like a project plan targeting Vera gifts and cover stories asset moves. "This is my handwriting," he said. "I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm telling the truth because I created this mess and because my mom just dragged an innocent man into it. I'm sorry, Lena. I'm sorry, Evan. I'm sorry to the people who didn't sign up for my worst self." He posted it, Facebook, Instagram, a YouTube link that spread faster than the smear. The pivot was immediate and vicious. The same accounts that had called me names now discovered mea culpas and morality. Some apologized. Most moved on to the next fire. Maya pinged, "We can withdraw the emergency filing against Doe if Price wants. Keep the preservation letters rolling." Evan's counsel nodded. They let the takedowns proceed and held Helen's name in reserve in case she tried again. In the late afternoon quiet, Evan reappeared at my door with paper cups. "Caffeine and a protein bar," he said. "Doctor's orders. Also, legal says our debt can keep Friday's slot if you feel up to it." "I do, and I meant it." The thread that had stitched me to that family fear, yes. Anger definitely finally snapped. What remained was the work I was good at, and a room full of people who'd seen me bleed and hadn't flinched. On my way out that evening, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Ryan." I told the truth. "It's late, but it's true. I'll sign whatever Maya puts in front of me. I'm sorry." I typed back 2 words that were neither cruel nor kind, just accurate. Noted, received. Then I slid my phone into my bag, stepped into the Seattle dusk, and realized I could breathe all the way down to the bottom of my lungs again. The war was over. Cleanup and whatever comes next could finally begin. By Friday, the legal dust began to settle. Maya converted our TRO into a temporary injunction, stapled Ryan's signed settlement to it, and put hearing dates on the court's calendar. Banks stayed frozen where we needed them frozen. The joint cards stayed dead. Ryan's counsel acknowledged service in writing down to the timestamp, so there'd be no later pretend amnesia. For the record, and to fix the rumor mill, it wasn't his parents' place where the lock blinked red. It was our Lake Union townhouse, the one we'd picked for the morning light. The keypad code changed on Tuesday. The boxes went out Wednesday. His attorney picked up the new key on Thursday. Paper trail for everything. No drama, just documentation. Work gave me something sane to hold. Evan and I finished the Northlake Partners deck, plugged in the risk bands and SEAC benchmarks, and walked into Friday's pitch like we owned the room. We didn't flirt. We didn't perform. We did numbers and story. When Northlake's COO shook my hand first, Evan grinned like a proud coach and let me take the questions everyone in that room meant for him. The smear fizzled the way wildfire does after the rain. Legal preserved everything. Takedowns landed. Price v. Doe sat ready on a thumb drive if needed. After Ryan's public confession, we let it sit. Helen didn't post again. I didn't look for her apology. Two weeks late, in a beige courtroom that smelled like dust and paper, the judge signed our decree. Primary residence to me, liquid accounts to me, 60% of Hart and Mason Consulting to me via quitclaim. He kept his tools, clothes, and whatever remained of his separate property. No alimony either way. It was clinical, which is the best a courtroom can be. I sold the Lake Union townhouse within a month. I didn't want to win a house I couldn't breathe in. The new apartment I chose sat 12 floors up, a south-facing balcony, Red Hawks games in the distance on clear nights. I bought plants I couldn't kill and a dining table that only seated 4 on purpose. I slept through the night for the first time in a year. At the office, we launched Northlake, and to my shock, crushed it. The client's VP sent an email with the words "best in class" and copied half the city. HR slid a promotion letter across the table with a new title and a raise that read like a typo. Evan said nothing in the room. He waited until we were in the elevator, then bumped my shoulder with the most restrained celebration I've ever seen. "You did that," he said. "Not luck. Craft." That Friday, our team did drinks at a tiny place on the Ship Canal Stringlight Dock, smelled jazz low. People peeled off by tens until it was just the two of us splitting the end of a flatbread and some story from his first startup that ended in a server fire and humility. He didn't make a move. Instead, he slid a folder across the table, a stamped HR memo outlining a recusal plan he'd already filed. He was stepping out of my reporting chain, performance reviews, moved to the COO, any future appearance of impropriety pre-cleared. It was overkill and exactly right. Now he said a little awkward if, down the road, you wanted dinner that wasn't a team thing, we wouldn't be a headline. No hurry. Your pace? The truth was, I wanted the idea more than the night. I told him so. He nodded like he'd expected that answer and paid the bill. Summer folded into fall. The decree hit the registry, the shares transferred. Hart and Mason became Hart and Mason, in name only. I stopped refreshing anything that wasn't a work dashboard. On a Sunday, I boxed my wedding album and dropped it at a donation bin. It felt right that strangers might make crafts out of a life I wasn't living anymore. Then November brought a call I didn't expect. Mason. His voice sounded 10 years older. "Lena, I know I'm the last person who should call you. Ryan's sick. Bad. The last few months he's been drinking. They're saying cirrhosis and urgent transplant evaluation. We're out of money. He needs a deposit to get on the list. I wouldn't ask if..." He stopped. I could hear Helen in the background sobbing, or angry, or both. Every cell in me said no. That family had planned to gut me on paper and smile through it. The part of me that still had a pulse said this ends with you. "Text me the hospital and the case manager's name," I said. "I'm not wiring you. If I help, it goes directly to them." That night, I sat in the dark on my balcony with a blanket and the kind of quiet that lets you hear your own arguments. Revenge is hot. Peace is heavier. Around midnight, I texted Evan not for an answer, just to say the dilemma out loud. He replied the way he always did, one sentence that held a whole map. "Whatever lets you sleep." In the morning, I called the transplant coordinator myself. I verified amounts and paid the intake fee, directly $3,000, the exact number I'd once handed a PI to follow Ryan's business trip. I told the coordinator to mark the account anonymous and texted Mason a single line. "Paid, we're square. Please don't contact me again." He sent back a thank you and nothing else. That too felt correct. Winter brought small, ordinary joys. I'd nearly forgotten a Saturday with no emergency, a pantry you open and know what's inside, laughter that doesn't check the room first. Evan and I finally did that non-team dinner after HR's recusal was live, and my promotion made official. Not a movie kiss, not fireworks. A hand across a table, a question asked, plainly an answer, given without fear. We took it slow because I needed slow. He didn't rescue me. I wasn't a thing to be rescued. We met where we were. By spring, the company greenlit an Austin office and asked me to stand it up. New market, new team clean org chart. No reporting mess with Evan, no optics to manage. I said yes. He read my face as easily as my deck. "Flights go both ways," he said, like it was logistics and not a promise. "We'll make it an adventure." On my last night in Seattle, I sat on my floor among half-packed boxes and wrote a short list on a sticky note, 3 lines black pen. What I kept: my name, my work, my self-respect. What I left: a house that didn't fit anymore. A man who didn't love me enough to be honest. A family that loved their plan more than people. What's next? Build something that belongs to me. I stuck it inside the kitchen cabinet, where the next tenant would never see it, and closed the door. In the morning, I took one last look at the balcony plants, and the light on the hardwood locked the door behind me and chose my life on purpose. Austin didn't ease me in. It shoved. Heat that hummed. New office lease with drywall dust still in the air. A 5-person launch team who looked at me like I had the map. I did scribbled in pen on a legal pad arrows everywhere. Day 1, we built a whiteboard out of painter's tape. Day 2, Callie James, my operations lead with a bullet journal brain, found us vendors coffee and a copier that only jammed when we bragged about it. By Friday, we were a company Wi-Fi named after a taco place we'd try not to kill a client pipeline that didn't hate us. Seattle became airports and FaceTime. Evan kept his promise he recused, then visited as board sponsor, not my boss. He'd land eat breakfast tacos like religion sit with the team and never once crossed the line HR drew. On Sundays, he flew back north. We were not dramatic. We were deliberate. 2 weeks in the knock came. I wasn't expecting anyone. The peephole showed a thinner version of a man I once knew peripherally, Mason Hart. Same eyes as Ryan, but all the gloss gone. He held a black leather notebook to his chest like a life vest. I opened the door, but not wide. You weren't supposed to contact me. He nodded. I know. His voice cracked and he caught it. I drove from the airport. I wouldn't be here if I had another option. We stood in the hall air conditioner thrumming. He didn't try to step past me. How's Ryan? I asked because not asking would make me someone I didn't recognize. Bad. He swallowed. They moved him to the transplant service. The intake you paid got him evaluated. Thank you. But the list, it's money and time we don't have. He lifted the notebook a little like an offering. He wanted you to have this. He said it belongs on your side of the line. I didn't reach for it. I've seen it, I said. It's already done what it needed to do. Mason let his hands fall. I'm sorry, he said, simple and unadorned. For Westfield, for letting him pull me into it, for not telling you the second I knew what he was doing. For Mom, especially for Mom, she's not okay. A dozen sentences crowded my mouth. You were fine when it was my money. You found your throat when yours dried up. Instead, I asked the question that mattered. What are you asking me for exactly? Help! He winced at the word. Not to us, to the case manager, the shortfall to keep him on the list. He flinched before I could say no. I know what I'm asking. I know who I'm asking. Anger arrived hot, and then something colder, steadier. I'd already had this fight with myself in the dark, and I'd picked a side. I made one payment, I said. Anonymous, to the hospital. That was the last thing I could do and still be able to look at myself in the mirror. He nodded again like he'd practiced for this answer. Then, can I at least leave this? He held the notebook out one more time. It's not absolution, it's a record. Maybe it keeps me honest. Maybe it reminds you that you weren't crazy. I took it because refusing would be petty. The leather was warm from his hands. There's a social worker on every transplant team, I said. They know foundations. They know church funds. They know the kindness of strangers. Use them, not me. His eyes shone and he blinked hard. You don't owe us grace. I'm not giving you grace, I said. I'm setting a boundary. He swallowed, stepped back, and managed something like a bow that didn't belong to either of us. Thank you for opening the door, he said, and turned down the hall, smaller with every step. I set the notebook on the kitchen counter and didn't open it. The air conditioner clicked off. The apartment went quiet in that way that feels loud. I made tea I wouldn't drink and watched the door like it might apologize. When the key turned an hour later, it was Evan's suitcase, rolling behind him, tie already tugged loose. He took one look at my face, set the bag aside, and said nothing until I did. Mason came, I said. I didn't write a check. I said the word boundary out loud. It sounded like a confession and a victory in the same sentence. He nodded like a man hearing good form. How do you feel? Like someone cut a wire that kept sparking, I said. Like the quiet is mine. He noticed the notebook and didn't touch it. Keep it or burn it, he said. Either way, you don't read it tonight. We ate on the balcony queso and chips and a salad because we were pretending balance and let Austin hum below us. When the heat broke, he pulled a letter from his bag. Not a ring, not a grand gesture. Paper with a header and a stamp. What's that? Logistics, he said, sheepish. The board approved a new role VP growth strategy not tied to a single office. I'll split time where I'm useful, which is to say here a lot. He searched my face. If that's what you want. If not, I keep my Seattle orbit and we keep flying. Your pace, remember. It would have been easy to say yes because he'd rearranged planets. It felt better to say yes because I wanted to, not because it solved anything. Yes, I said, and felt the word land in my bones. But not because you solved a problem, because you asked. He laughed soft and relieved. Copy that. The next week, work did what work does, demanded our attention until our personal headlines went quiet. Callie closed our first Austin contract and ordered a bell to ring when deals landed. We shook hands with a landlord twice my size and wrangled a TI credit like a chess endgame. I slept through storms and woke up before my alarm. On a Tuesday, an email from the hospital slid into my inbox. Routine update, nothing urgent, evaluation, complete list criteria, met funding status in progress. I forwarded it to Mason with 2 words. Social worker. 5 minutes later came his reply. We're on it. Thank you for not slamming the door. I didn't answer. Some threads don't need knots. That Friday, the team dragged me to a food truck park under string lights to celebrate the bell's first ring. Someone handed me a Topo Chico with lime. Someone else shoved a tray of brisket into my hands. Callie raised a plastic cup. To Lena, she said, for building a thing that feels like a thing. They clinked water and soda and 1 contraband beer. I thought of every room I'd ever stood in where I felt like furniture. I thought of a townhouse with a keypad that blinked red at the right time. I thought of a man who told the truth on camera when it was too late, and a mother who weaponized grief. And of another man, this one who filed a recusal memo before he asked me to dinner. To us, I corrected and meant it. Later, when the lights were low and the city hummed like a content animal, I finally opened the notebook. Not for pain, not for proof, just to decide. The first page was the table of contents I already knew, targeting covers transfers. I closed it again, walked to the kitchen, and slid it into the back of a cabinet I rarely opened. Not a trophy, not a shrine, just a file that no longer owned me. I stood at the window and watched headlights drift along the frontage road. Tiny comets headed somewhere else. Behind me, Evan was exactly where I'd left him, on the sofa shoes, off half asleep to a game he didn't care about. The apartment smelled like citrus and warm paper. For the first time in a long run of first times, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the next blow. What came next would be a choice, not a reaction. And that felt like the point of surviving. 9 months is long enough for drywall to forget it was dust, and for a team to become a team because there isn't time to be anything else. By spring, the Austin office had doubled. Callie turned 5 people into 12, and a whiteboard into a war room, color-coded stickies, traffic light statuses, a brass bell. We rang for new wins until the bell was a joke and we were the ones the building complained about. Our Wi-Fi was still named after a taco. Our plants were still somehow alive. Seattle became a rhythm, Tuesday flights for me when I had to Thursday flights for Evan when he could. He kept his VP growth strategy promises surgical reviews with the COO dotted line check-ins calendar, invites that never turned into surprises. He'd land, bring kolaches like he was currying favor with a small benevolent monarchy. Callie sit with the analysts, then vanish into a shared WeWork so nobody could accuse us of inventing meetings to sit next to each other. We did not do grand, we did consistent. Some nights, I still woke up convinced I heard a lattice of old habits ticking the way you can swear you hear a refrigerator after you've unplugged it. On those nights, I'd pad to the balcony bare feet on cool concrete and count traffic on the frontage road until my brain remembered what silence was. The hospital emails didn't come often. When they did, they were all nouns and no adjectives, evaluation complete. List status active, funding partial grant applied. I forwarded each to Mason with the same subject line update and the same body, confirm with the social worker. He started replying with one-liners that sounded like a man learning the difference between explanation and accountability. Confirmed. We filled out the foundation paperwork. Thank you for the intake, you didn't have to. I didn't answer those. Boundaries aren't boundaries if you keep decorating them. On a Wednesday in early June, the email subject line changed. Transplant offer accepted. My stomach dropped before my eyes finished the sentence. I stared at the screen long enough for my tea to go cold, then typed the only message that fit. Hope the call came in time. 3 hours later, Mason wrote back from a waiting room somewhere that smelled like bleach and fear and surgery now. Whatever happens, thank you for not slamming the door. I put my phone face down and walked a slow lap around the block because some news requires oxygen. He texted again at 2:17 a.m. Out. Complicated, but the liver's pinking up. I see you. Then we'll see. I read it in the blue dark, and felt exactly nothing explosive, no vindication, no soft epiphany, just a tired, quiet relief that another human being might get a second draft. I didn't tell anyone that night. In the morning, I told Evan in 6 words over coffee. He nodded, not the solemn nod people practice for bad news, but the real one for the messy middle. "Okay," he said, "good." He was in town to help me interview PM candidates. After the 4th one, called a Gantt chart a personality, we took a break and walked the block. "You look like you swallowed a beehive," he said, eyes on the pavement. Not my face. "I keep expecting some old reflex to flare," I said. "Rage, or gloating, or guilt. But it's all just even." "That's not nothing," he said. "That's your nervous system believing you." Back at the office, Callie rang the bell for a mid-market logistics win, and everyone whooped because we made a lot of noise for something that would translate into spreadsheets. The bell made me laugh. The spreadsheet made me happy. I took the team out for paletas and let sugar be a language. A week later, an envelope arrived at the office with no return address and handwriting I recognized from a dozen FedEx labels. I stared at it like it might bite. Evan wandered by, saw the way my shoulders were braced, and leaned against the door jamb. "You want me to—" I shook my head and slid it open. Inside, a single page, ruled ripped from a legal pad. Mason's handwriting this time, not Ryan's. He made it through the first week. "There are problems, there always are, but the surgeons say the liver looks good. He asked me not to contact you again. I'm honoring that. He also asked me to make sure you knew he knows he got to this point because you didn't kick the ladder away. We're working with the social worker. Mom isn't in the picture. She made choices. That's all I've got." I read it twice, then handed it to Evan. He skimmed, handed it back, and didn't try to tell me how to feel. The relief that unspooled was small and precise, like pulling a sliver you'd learn to live around. That night in my kitchen, I took the black leather notebook off the back shelf where I'd shoved it months ago. I didn't open it. I put it in a grocery sack, tied the handles in a hard knot, and carried it down to the building's shred bin. The machine ate plastic and paper and old scaffolding for almost a minute, loud enough that the night manager popped his head out to see if we were grinding metal. When it was done, there was confetti where a project plan used to be. I slept straight through until my alarm. No ghosts tapping. Summer leaned in hard. We signed our 20th Austin client and hired a recruiter before I became one by accident. Callie bought a cake for our 1 year and iced it with a frosting bell. Evan's calendar started listing AUS more than C because the board had discovered the thing I already knew: we were building something that worked. On a Sunday afternoon, thick with heat and neighbor music, Evan stood in my kitchen with a dish towel on his shoulder, considering the oven like it was a strategy problem. "I'm thinking about leases," he said. "That's romantic." "It is if I stop paying 2 of them," he said. "My sublet in Seattle is up in October. The board has me here 3 weeks out of 4. We can keep ping-ponging and pretending it doesn't matter. Or I can sign a real lease in this zip code and keep a crash pad up north. Not cohabitation unless you want it. Just fewer goodbyes." The thing about a man who files a recusal memo before he asks you to dinner is that you start believing him when he says your pace. I thought about how little of my life had been designed by me until recently. I thought about the last key that didn't work and the first key code I got to set. "Sign it," I said, "and keep your crash pad." He nodded, relieved in a way that had nothing to do with rent. "Okay then." We told HR because we over-communicated by design. The COO rolled his eyes like a benevolent uncle and said, "Don't make me read about you, and I promised we wouldn't." In August, I flew to Seattle for Northlake Partners Review. The air smelled like rain coming. The city wasn't haunted anymore. It was just a place I used to live. I had lunch with Maya in a Vietnamese spot that put basil in everything and asked 0 questions I didn't want to answer. She slid an envelope across the table like a bookie. "Certified copy of the decree with the share transfer," she said. "Frame it, burn it, make origami cranes your call." I laughed and tucked it into my laptop sleeve. "How are your other clients who discovered spines?" "Messy and magnificent," she said, beaming. "Like you." On my last morning in town, I walked past the Lake Union townhouse. New planters on the porch. A woman in a robe watering a fern with the easy intimacy of someone who'd always lived there. I didn't linger. I didn't need to. The door didn't recognize me, and I didn't recognize the door, and that was how it should be. Fall in Austin is a rumor, but the nights did start to cool. Callie convinced me to host a team dinner under my building's string lights, folding tables, mismatched chairs, someone's kid asleep in a stroller, Evan's famous too salty grilled corn. We ate and argued gently about the best breakfast taco in the city and told the stories teams tell when they've switched from coworkers to something with roots. Later, when the last Tupperware was claimed and the last folding chair squealed shut, Evan found me at the railing with paper plates in my hands and the whole city humming at a volume that sounded like a life. "Doorway test," he asked soft. I knew what he meant. The last time it had been a literal door, I chose not to open wider. This time, it was the other kind, the door you step through when there's nothing to chase and nothing to run from, only the life you're choosing on purpose. "Passed," I said. He took the plates. "Copy that." Later, when the apartment was clean and the bell cake was a memory, and the only light came from the stove clock, I pulled out a sticky note and a pen the same way I had the night before the move. What I kept final. My name, my work, my sense of proportion. The people who show up the way promises are supposed to. What I left final. A script built by someone else, a taste for war, any key that isn't mine. What's next? More of what's quiet and strong. More building, less bracing. I stuck it inside the cabinet behind the turmeric I never used, and the cumin I always did. Some stories end with a door slamming. Mine ended with a code I set and a door I open without flinching. If you've ever stood with your hand on a doorknob stomach in your throat, trying to decide whether the old you or the new you gets the key, here's what I learned on the other side. Peace is heavier than revenge, but it's easier to carry. Story 2. My stepsister stole my fiancé by eloping with him right before the wedding. Now they are panicking and coming back to beg me after I did this to them. Fast forward to when we were 23, and we decided we were so in love that we should get married. So we got engaged, and everything seemed perfect for a while. But then, just 2 weeks before our big wedding day, something straight out of a movie happened. My fiancé Tom, who was 27, and my stepsister Sarah, who's a year younger than him, suddenly decided they were in love with each other. Instead, they ran off together just like that, leaving me a note in the note. Tom told me he had been secretly seeing Sarah for a while, and that they realized they were the ones who were truly meant to be together, not him and me. He said it felt wrong to go through with our wedding when his heart belonged to someone else, and thought it was for the best because this way nobody would end up unhappy or living a lie. After they took off, I didn't hear from them again for a really long time. Tom's parents, feeling super sorry about everything, paid for all the wedding expenses, so I wouldn't have to spend a dime, which was nice of them. But that was pretty much the last time I had any contact with his side of the family. My family, on the other hand, was beyond upset. My parents were furious, and my stepdad was so angry. He even thought about hiring a detective to find Tom and Sarah and bring them back to explain themselves. It was a total mess, and definitely not how I thought things would turn out. So since I was super young, like around 5 years old, the man I call my dad is actually my stepdad. But here's the deal. He's the only dad I've ever known or needed. My real dad left us when I was just a baby, and my mom never saw him again after that. He even signed some papers saying he didn't want to be part of my life. My mom and he were never married. Then, when I was about 7 years old, my mom married my stepdad, and that's who I've been calling Dad ever since. Now, Sarah and we used to go to the same school. That's how our parents met. But Sarah, she didn't like me, not one bit. She was mean to me, really mean, like a bully in movies. She had her group of friends, and they would always pick on me both at school and at home. It was like there was no break from her meanness. I told my parents about it, hoping they could make it stop. They did try to talk to her and tell her off, but Sarah didn't care. She wasn't afraid of them at all, so she just kept on bullying me. School was tough because of her and her friends, making it feel like a never-ending nightmare. Just like how I never had my real dad around. Sarah's situation was pretty tough from the start. Her own mom passed away when she was really young, like just 2 years old. It happened suddenly one night because of a health issue called a heart attack. So when my mom tried to step in and tell Sarah off for being mean or doing something wrong, Sarah would snap back, saying my mom had no right to tell her what to do since she wasn't her real mom. My dad gave it a shot too, trying to get Sarah to stop being so mean to me. They tried all sorts of things from getting really strict with her to sitting down and trying to talk things out calmly, but Sarah didn't care. Nothing they said or did made any difference to her. They even threatened to send her away somewhere if she didn't stop. But Sarah just threw those threats right back in their faces, knowing they wouldn't really do it. As time went on, Sarah didn't get any better. By the time we were in high school, she was really out of control. She started smoking, hanging out with a really rough crowd, and sneaking out to drink. And then one night, she got caught. She and her friends were busted for breaking into someone's house after they had been drinking. That was the last straw for our parents. They realized Sarah needed serious help, so they decided to send her away to a place that could hopefully set her straight. After a lot of arguing and pleading, Sarah finally agreed to go to a special place for teenagers who were having a really tough time and were acting out like a rehab center for troubled teens. She wasn't happy about it, but my dad was super serious. He told her that if she wanted to stay with us and be part of our family, she needed to get her act together. He was worried because her actions were not just hurting us, but could also be dangerous for others around her. So during our junior year of high school, Sarah left to get the help she needed. She didn't come back home until after we had finished high school. She stayed with her uncle and went to a school close to the rehab center. I didn't really keep in touch with her during this time. I mean, she was the person who made my life miserable, so why would I want to know how she was doing? My parents would go see her every weekend and always asked if I wanted to join them, but I was like, no way. While she was gone, her friends at school stopped bothering me. It was like I didn't even exist to them anymore, which was actually pretty nice because it meant no more bullying. My high school years got a lot better from that point on. When Sarah came back, she had finished her schooling and seemed to have changed. The first thing she did was apologize to me for all the mean stuff she had done. She seemed much calmer, and I could tell she was trying to be a better person, so I decided to forgive her. As high school was winding down and we were getting ready for college, things between me and Sarah started to shift a bit. We were about to head off to different colleges, which meant we'd be moving out and starting new chapters of our lives. When we did come back home for holidays, I noticed Sarah was acting differently towards me. She wasn't exactly friendly, but she wasn't mean anymore either. Instead of bothering me all the time, she just sort of ignored me, which honestly, I was totally okay with. Being ignored was way better than being bullied. Our parents saw the change too, but they didn't push us to be super close or act like sisters given everything that had happened. Them seeing us not fighting was probably a relief. Then I started dating Tom. After we had been together for a year, I decided it was time he met my family, so I brought him home for Christmas. To my surprise, everyone got along great, even Sarah. She actually joined in on the conversation, which was something new. She seemed to get along with Tom pretty well, which was a bit of a surprise. After I started dating Tom, Sarah suddenly seemed interested in being more friendly with me. She would reach out to talk, which was something she never really did before. It was like she was trying to make up for the past in her own way. I was really confused by how Sarah was acting all nice out of the blue, and I couldn't shake off this little worry that maybe she liked Tom, my boyfriend. So one day, I just straight up asked her if she was trying to be friends with me because of Tom. She laughed it off and said that wasn't it at all. The real reason she started changing her attitude towards me was something Tom said during our first dinner together. He talked about how much he loved his brothers and sisters, and that got Sarah thinking. She realized she had been pretty awful to me for a long time, especially after she came back from the rehab place. Tom's words made her want to fix things between us, not because she had a crush on him, but because she saw how important family was. Sarah admitted she used to blame me for her having to go to that rehab center for troubled teens, but after a while, she understood that it wasn't my fault. She was the one who messed up. She decided it was time to stop treating me badly and try to really be a part of our family. So Tom kind of helped her see things differently, even if he didn't know it. I was really confused by how Sarah started acting nicer and wanting to be friends all of a sudden, and part of me wondered if it was because she liked Tom. So I just asked her straight up if she was being friendly because of him. She laughed it off and said no. She explained that hearing Tom talk about how close he was with his siblings made her think about our own relationship. She realized she wanted to fix things between us, not because of Tom himself, but because he made her see how important family relationships are. Sarah admitted she used to blame me for her being sent to that rehab place for troubled teens, and it took her a while to understand that it was her own actions that got her there, not me. She said she wanted to make things right with me to really be part of the family, and that meant apologizing sincerely and trying to improve our relationship. Her words really got to me, and I decided to forgive her and try to be friends. That decision felt right for a long time. Sarah even got involved in planning my wedding, and our relationship seemed to be getting better. We weren't super close, but things were definitely better than before. We made a point to catch up regularly, and by the time Tom and I got engaged, Sarah and I were on pretty good terms. I had no reason to suspect anything weird between her and Tom. They both acted totally normal around each other at family gatherings, and even after our engagement, nothing seemed off. It was like everything was finally falling into place. I was totally caught off guard by everything. I never once suspected that Tom could like Sarah. He was really good at pretending he was all about me, and Sarah was just as good at acting like my friend. It wasn't until they ran off together that I realized what was actually going on. After they left, my parents were super angry and wanted to go after them, but I just didn't have the energy for more drama. I was already feeling super low and embarrassed by the whole situation. They'd made me look like a fool, disappearing just 2 weeks before what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. So I asked my parents to just let it be because I needed to focus on healing, not chasing after them. I tried to keep busy with work and slept a lot, basically doing anything I could to not think about how hurt I was. But just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I got a postcard from Sarah from New York. To make things even more painful, she included photos of her and Tom looking really happy together. It was like another blow to my already broken heart. So after everything went down, Sarah sent me a postcard from New York. It seemed like she was trying to say sorry for shocking me right before the wedding, but it was pretty clear she wasn't actually sorry. Instead, it felt like she was just trying to make me even more upset. That's when it hit me. She had never really gotten over being sent away years ago. She still blamed me for it and never actually wanted to be my friend. She was just pretending using me to get closer to Tom. Looking back, it feels like a really twisted plan. Just a few days after getting that postcard, I was a total wreck. I couldn't sleep and I kept going over everything in my mind. It was just too much. Going through this was super hard. I ended up needing therapy for months to work through the hurt and the trust issues that came from this betrayal and the postcards. They didn't stop coming. Sarah kept sending them, showing off her life with Tom, but I never gave in to the drama or responded. Eventually, about 8 months later, she stopped sending them. Our parents were really upset about it, and naturally cut all ties with her after that. They didn't even try to reach out to her after the first postcard died, and that was a huge loss for Sarah because she was all set to inherit her dad's company. She was a marketing major, and that was part of the reason why she had chosen that route for herself, because she wanted to join her father. But of course, after what she had pulled off, our father cut all ties with her and told me I could join him instead, because he felt like he had to make up for everything in a major way. But I didn't have a marketing degree. I was actually an art major, and that pretty much had nothing to do with business, so I needed to learn the ropes first. My father said that it was not a problem because he was willing to teach me everything he knew so that I could eventually take over the company instead of Sarah. So I agreed and started to work with him so I could learn how to run the company, and he could retire and hand over the reins to me. After a while, I worked really hard for a couple of years, and last year I was finally promoted and my father retired. It was an amazing feeling because I had started from scratch and had to learn everything, but now everything was smooth sailing under me and has been for some time. Thanks to me, my parents can now spend more time together without worrying about the business because I'm taking care of it. It's been this way for quite a while, and I pretty much stopped thinking about Tom after I started working for my father because that took up all my time. That, along with therapy, helped me move on. And I would say now I've completely moved on and don't think about them or what they did. I never thought that they would ever reach out to me again, let alone ask for my help, because it would take a lot of guts, an utter lack of functioning brain cells to ask me to help them out after they screwed me over and made a fool out of me, and then went on to rub it in my face as well. But I guess that Sarah and Tom really do lack brains now because they did reach out to me a few days back. I was at home because it was the weekend, and around dinner time, I heard someone frantically ringing my doorbell. I thought it was the package I had ordered, so I didn't think much of it when I opened the door. I received the biggest surprise of my life when instead of a delivery guy, I found Sarah standing outside my house looking really worried. I didn't know what to say, so I just silently waited for her to speak. While looking at her, I realized that she was definitely here to ask for help because she was looking destitute, and her appearance gave her away. Even as a kid, Sarah always used to dress well, but when I saw her, she was dressed in old clothes that were all faded and had obviously been purchased a really long time ago. Her jeans were way too short, and she herself looked like she hadn't been eating. I'd already made up my mind that whatever she was about to ask me, the answer was going to be no. So when she said that she needed me to help her out because she and Tom had been struggling for a really long time ever since he lost his job a few months ago, I wasn't surprised he had started drinking instead of looking for a new job. And even though she had been trying to find a job for herself, she couldn't because she had quit everything to stay at home and do all the household work when she first moved away with Tom. And because of that, she hadn't been working in the recent past, and the gap in her resume made her a weaker contender for all the jobs she had been applying to. She said that she had heard from a couple of relatives that our father had retired and had handed over the company to me, so now she was here to ask me if I would be willing to hire Tom and give him something to do. Sarah told me that she had come all the way here only to ask me for help, and said that she was sorry for whatever she did in the past, but now she was counting on me to bail her out. She told me that she hadn't even approached our parents yet and had come straight to my house to ask for help because she knew that I had a kind heart, and she felt awfully guilty about betraying me in the past, but she was sure that I wouldn't turn her away now that she needed my help. Her entitlement was so ridiculous that I ended up laughing in her face and told her to apply somewhere else because I don't hire cheaters. Then I shut the door in her face and walked back into the living room, preparing to call the cops if she didn't get off my property soon. Thankfully, she did go away that day, but she hasn't left me alone yet. After her visit, the first thing I did was call our parents and tell them about it. They told me that they had heard from a couple of their neighbors that Sarah was back in town without Tom, but they hadn't believed it. And we live in a relatively small town, so everybody knows everybody. We were quickly able to find out that Sarah had been here for about 2 weeks before she finally paid me a visit and had been living with one of her old friends from high school. It was probably her high school friend who had told her where I was living, and also about the fact that I had inherited the company that was rightfully supposed to be hers. And now she was really milking that. A couple of days after she visited me, she decided to go meet our parents to tell them how heartless I was being. She had expected them to be on her side now that she had the upper hand on who was suffering more, but she couldn't have been more mistaken, because my father told her that the company was now mine to run, and I could make whatever decisions I deemed fit. He didn't have any say in it anymore, because he wasn't going to micromanage me, and my mother reminded her that she was the one who had screwed me over by running away with my fiancé after pretending to be my friend for years. And now she completely deserved whatever was coming to her. She had lost the right to ask any of us for help, especially me, after she had been sending me postcards to torment me. She tried to defend herself by saying that it was all in the past and she's a different person now. But my parents told her that she had to leave because they wanted nothing to do with her anymore. That led to her throwing a tantrum at their house and claiming that they had always favored me over her and treated me like the golden child. She told my father that in spite of being his own flesh and blood, he had never treated her like that and acted as if I was his only daughter and she was worth nothing to him. When he told her that he had made more allowances for her behavior in the past than any other parent in the world would, she said that it still didn't matter. I had everything that she was supposed to have, including the company that I was showing off about. She said that it wasn't even her fault that Tom had fallen for her and wanted to spend his life with her instead of me. But for some reason, she was the one being punished for it. She claimed that the postcards she had sent were meant to be a genuine apology, and she wasn't even trying to torment me. And honestly, I haven't been able to stop thinking about that since my father told me what she said. In a way, it's true that she was supposed to inherit this company and be in my place, but she really lost it because of her own actions. I had no part to play in that. I never told my father to cut her out of his life and hand over the company to me. He did it of his own volition, and it feels kind of unfair for her to blame me for this. Also, the thing that she said about me being the golden child is absolutely not true, but I can see why she would feel that way, because in her head, she was the one who was sent away because I complained about her and her incessant bullying. A parent deciding to send their kid away is a really big deal, and I know it was rough on my father, but again, that's not his fault or my fault. If he hadn't taken the necessary steps to prevent it, Sarah might have turned out to be a criminal or something, because that's the way she was going. Apart from that, I don't really think she was trying to apologize with the postcards, and was probably just trying to cover it up by saying that it was supposed to be a genuine apology. I just feel bad for her because her husband turned out to be completely useless, and now she has to bail him out. So she actually came to me, and I can't imagine how difficult that must have been for her. So I kind of regret treating her the way I did. I have everything now and she has nothing, so I can't help but feel sorry for her. That's just who I am as a person. Besides, it has been a long time, and I don't feel like holding on to that grudge anymore. But I also don't want to help her out in any way. The most I can do is give them my sympathy, but I really don't want to hire them or help them out with money. I think it's enough that I even feel bad for her after everything that she put me through. Most people probably wouldn't bat an eye. The only reason I even feel bad for her right now is because this company was actually supposed to be hers. And now that I'm in a position of power, I'm finally getting back at her. And I just feel like it's not right. It might be because of what she said about me being the golden child, or maybe just plain old imposter syndrome. But I feel weird about this. So am I the jerk for refusing to hire my ex-fiancé, who eloped with my stepsister? Now that they're struggling with money, and help them out. Update 1. I haven't had any idea what to do. And the comments here just confuse me even more. Because some of you said that I was doing the right thing by turning them away, and the other half said I had always been the golden child. And that's why Sarah started to act out. So this wasn't as helpful as I had thought it was going to be. I decided to talk to my parents, because every single time that I have had to face problems in my life, I have always approached my parents for advice, and I did the same this time as well. They told me that I had no reason to feel sorry for Sarah, because everybody had gone above and beyond to try and make her a better person. But if she wasn't willing to turn over a new leaf at any point in her life, then there was not much that we could do for her. My father told me that he had every intention of letting her take over the company. Had she behaved herself and been a good daughter, but she failed at everything and made a total mockery out of our family. After that, she would be a fool to expect him to let her take over, or even be a part of the family anymore. That made me feel. Consider better, because talking to my parents always does. So I try not to let myself feel guilty about things that I don't do anymore. Update 2. About 2 weeks have passed since Sarah showed up at my door, and since her visit to my parents, we haven't heard from her. I almost forgot that she had gone back to Tom until today, when she showed up at my workplace to make a scene. It was horrible because she just waltzed into the place. She had known the ins and outs ever since she was a child, and got in without alerting security quite easily. Then she went on to take her place in front of my office, and started to shout about how I had stolen this company from right under her nose by pretending to be a good little girl for our parents, and constantly being a bootlicker so they would approve of me. Apparently, I was responsible for vilifying her by falsely accusing her of bullying me throughout our childhood, and even talking my father into sending her to rehab just so I could cement my position as the golden child of the family. She went on to announce that this company was supposed to be hers, but now I was refusing to even let her be a part of it because I was jealous that Tom had chosen her over me, unlike our parents who had always favored me. And since I wasn't used to being overlooked, I lost my mind and turned our parents against her. When I heard the yelling, I decided to go out and check it out for myself after calling security. I tried to tell her to shut up, but she went on for a good few minutes until she was finally thrown out of the building. I decided to call my dad before calling the cops to get his opinion, and he was furious. So he told me to go right ahead and call the police. Thankfully, when the cops showed up, she was still lurking nearby, probably waiting for me to leave the building so she could yell at me Or maybe do something worse, like physically attack me. The cops took her away and charged her with trespassing and disturbing the peace. But they're minor charges, and she can probably get off with either just a fine or maybe community service. Worst case scenario. But it's certainly going on her record, and that's never good. I told my dad that she had been charged and arrested, and expected him to be a little upset about it, but he only seemed exasperated and told me that he was just tired of this and wanted a break from having to deal with her insanity. I honestly feel bad for him because it can't be easy having a daughter like Sarah and being blamed for everything that goes wrong in her life, even though most of the time it's her own fault. Honestly, we have all been really patient. Update 3. Okay, so I think Sarah has returned to New York because it's been a couple of days, and we haven't heard from her, which is weird because we expected her to lash out at us after her arrest. But my dad asked around and was told a couple of people saw her heading towards the airport the other day, so I'm assuming that she has left. It's honestly a huge relief that she's gone now because I was genuinely afraid that she was going to try to do something explosive to get our attention next. And that's always bad news. I don't know what she's going to do about the whole situation with Tom now because it seems unlikely that she's going to get help from anyone else after this. I just hope that she finds something to do and gets out of this mess. And no, I'm not even being kind or compassionate right now. I have very selfish reasons to say this, and that's because I know that if she doesn't find a way out of this mess, then she will just come back here with Tom and bother us some more. And I don't want that. So I genuinely hope and pray that either she or Tom finds a job and are able to support themselves. Either way, I don't have to hear from her for a couple of weeks at least, and I'm relieved that this nightmare is over, now.